Fasten your seatbelt. I am taking you for the ride of your life. I'm going to show you what this car can really do. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Hang on.
Okay.
Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
Go get him, kid.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Not a tumor at all.
You're going to ask me. So you can go ahead and ask me what you're going to ask me. And my natural response could be to get offended.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
All right.
You're listening to the 30-something movie podcast. One movie each week, 30 years in the making. It's the 30-something movie podcast. We're here this time around for career opportunities. We are a bunch of opportunistic young men, and I'm gonna still call us young. Like, I've realized now that I think, Bo, I think officially you were the one that finally brought us all into the 40s, at least.
Yes, I'm the baby, apparently, which... Who knew?
That's fine. That's usually me. So I'm fine with somebody else taking on that role.
You're still a young man, baby. Oh, don't waste your... Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about Tower of Power tonight.
Hey, no, you do whatever you... Well, you do whatever you want.
Okay, you went there. All right.
No, I didn't. I stopped myself. I did. I really did. I promise. So anyway, I'm worried for what this episode is going to turn into.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying it right now because I think, like, right off the bat, I think I'm going to bury the lead here. I'm not. Well, no.
Mind my own.
Hold on just a second. I'm going to have some of this tasty beverage to wash that down with.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
The movie's not good, is what we're trying to say right off the bat before we even get started.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of plot happening here.
True.
They tried. Like, they wanted you to feel for this. Well, before we get too deep, you want to run the intro and then we'll...
I will run the intro and then we can talk about what we felt.
Yeah.
And...
I'm going on mute.
I think we lost Pat.
Well, we're all not far off.
Oh.
Hey.
Man down, Ethan. Man down. Ay. All right. I feel like this is one of those movies where, like, we know going into it, it's like, this is not a great movie.
No.
And we just get kind of like slap happy with it.
Yes.
I kind of feel like that's gonna be this one.
And on the surface, like, I know why we chose this movie.
Mm-hmm.
There were two reasons. It sounded amusing.
Oh, okay.
And the talented lead actress brought us the party. And, well.
Are you okay, Pat?
John, I do not envy your editing of this.
You assume I'm going to do any editing.
Okay.
Oh, I assume at some point you're going to go, gosh, Nora might hear this. I have to be careful.
Just right over. Right over.
For now.
Well, yeah.
Oh, dear.
All right. Well, I can cover for myself here. My name is not John Reed. My name is now Bob Bosenbeck.
And I think I'll be Jim Amerson.
Okay. All right.
I've got a meeting later in Dubai, so I'm going to jump on my private jet and go take care of that because that's what
Bob
Jim
Bosenbeck.
Jamerson does.
Yeah, Bob Bosenbeck. Okay, anyway, I want to be Bob Bosenbeck.
Yes.
I always thought I wanted to be an airborne ranger. I want to be Bob Bosenbeck. All right. Well, we should probably start the episode now.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Well, we've already spoiled the podcast. So this podcast is probably beyond saving at this point. So we're just letting you know now. We're going to spoil the movie we talk about, and we're going to spoil freely. So just be warned. The 30-something movie podcast is also part of the Scene Stealers podcast network. This episode is sponsored by Scene Stealers International Convention Agent, who have a top-class roster of movie and TV stars ready to be booked now for your Comic-Con or event. For more information, check out www.scenestealersglobal.com. And then finally, visit our website, 30podcast.com. where you can leave a rating for the show, leave a voicemail, and you can become a co-executive producer by joining us on Patreon, where you get access to the exclusive Patreon members-only podcasts that we put out once a month, our most recent one having been Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, all good stuff, all wonderful stuff. All right, career opportunities. I would like to take this opportunity to tell you more about career opportunities. Allow me to do so. Got to keep it business here, or else we're just going to be giggling the entire time. Okay. All right.
Well,
yes.
Never mind.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say the headline in this movie is "Look at the brain on Brett."
I see you're kind of you're getting ahead of me here a little bit, because that's going to be so. I'll just jump ahead and say that. I think what happens at the end of this movie is they go out to California, and for some reason or another, maybe it's because of the events of this movie, and I don't know, he changes his name from Jim Dodge to Brett.
Well, that could be another of his alii.
Exactly, and that's what ends up happening to him, is that he is the Brett from Pulp Fiction.
Well, works in universe for me.
Yep. Yep. And then I'm sure Josie needs to be consoled.
And some of us would be happy to assist. Lend a hand, if you will.
Well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Moving on. Career opportunities. That's the movie tonight.
It is.
Yeah. Yep. Game face, Pat. Okay.
Bringing the A game.
Bringing the A game. All right. So Career Opportunities came out on the 29th of March, 1991, rated PG-13 with a runtime of 1 hour and 23 minutes. Directed by Brian Gordon, who also did Curb Your Enthusiasm and Pie in the Sky. Producers on this one, though he wouldn't want you to know about it, are John Hughes, who died in 2009, and Hunt Lowry. Hughes also produced The Great Outdoors and Home Alone. Lowry produced Donnie Darko, Last of the Mohicans. Writer for this one was John Hughes. He wrote Ferris Bueller's Day Off and The Breakfast Club. Cinematography was done by Donald McAlpine, who also did Moulin Rouge and Predator. Music was done by Thomas Newman, who did 1917 and The Shawshank Redemption. Budget, couldn't find the budget for this one. Box office was $11.3 million, so they probably broke more in that target than they actually made on this movie. I'm going to hazard a guess with that one.
Yeah.
Flick metrics.
Well, you never know. A movie like this with the John Hughes name on it could have made enough money just because.
Yeah. Flick metrics gives this one a 51%, and this one, and I'm trying to remember the last time that we had a cinema score this low. I mean, most of your cinema scores, they're like B+, A-, like people who are going to see the movie. They went to that movie because they wanted to see it. And when they come out of it, most times, cinema score is a little bit higher. This one's a C+. I don't know that I remember the last time we've seen a cinema score that had anything below a B. So
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So clearly people went to this one expecting something, and they did not get what they were expecting.
Well, written by John Hughes, you're sort of looking for something.
Right. So this one's starring Frank Whaley, who played Jim Dodge. He was in Pulp Fiction and Broken Arrow. Jennifer Connelly played Josie McClellan. She was in The Rocketeer and the TV series Snowpiercer. Dermot Mulroney played Nestor Pyle. He was in My Best Friend's Wedding and Young Guns. Kieran Mulroney played Gil Kenny. He was in Gettysburg and Nowhere to Run. John M. Jackson played Bud Dodge. He was in A Few Good Men and The Hitcher. Jenny O'Hara played Dottie Dodge. She was in Devil and Mystic River. Noble Willingham, who died in 2004, played Roger Roy McClellan. He was in Walker, Texas Ranger and Good Morning Vietnam. Nada Despodovich played Penny Dodge. She was in The Rocketeer and Jerry Maguire. Reed Binion played Cal Dodge. He was in Fried Green Tomatoes and Pet Sematary 2. Barry Corbin played Officer Don. He was in Modern Family and No Country for Old Men. Denise Gallick played Lorraine. She was in Two for the Money and V, The Final Battle. Wilbur Fitzgerald played Bob Bosenbeck. He was in 11/22/63 and The Hunger Games Catching Fire. Dan Albright played Dave Hockner. He was in Remember the Titans and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And John Candy, who died in 1994, played C.D. Marsh. He was in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Uncle Buck. When night shift custodian Jim is accidentally locked up alone in the store he cleans, wasn't really accidentally locked up, he realizes he has access to the entire building and decides to indulge in the abundance of free food and merchandise at his fingertips. Surprisingly, he bumps into local rich girl Josie, who is also imprisoned in the store for the night, and they quickly bond. Okay. But just as romantic sparks fly, Josie and Jim are interrupted by two small-time robbers.
I was 15 when I invented the artificial dog heart. How you doing?
John Hughes, the creator of The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Uncle Buck.
Did I ever tell you about the time that I signed a professional ball contract?
Would like to introduce you to Jim Dodge.
You got fired again, didn't you?
I'm not like everybody else.
He's got brain damage.
He does not.
He spent 21 years improving on reality.
Going to Paris on an F-14.
Jim is going to find himself.
Are you a slacker?
No, I'm Presbyterian.
I can offer you $4.44 per hour. $4.44.
What about the benefits?
There's no eating. You're not being paid to eat, so don't. And don't play any music.
I don't have any time to play any music.
Don't touch me. Welcome to the target team.
You're locking me in?
Boo. Then, one wild night, Jim Dodge finally found the real thing. In aisle 5.
What are you doing here?
I work here. Do you know how you make me feel?
Like a natural woman?
I'm a janitor in training. You're an heiress.
You know what your problem is?
No, but let me go get my list.
What are you planning to steal? Hairspray?
Well, we haven't decided yet, have we?
From John Hughes, Career Opportunities. The story of a man and a woman, aisles apart.
If I was sweating, would you touch me?
I would probably touch you even if you were covered with spiders.
And one night that changed everything.
Not as uncomfortable as I thought it'd be. Oh, no, it's not bad.
Career Opportunities on video cassette.
How does this movie make you feel? And is this the first time you've seen this?
Yes, it is the first time I've seen it, and it makes me feel some kind of way.
Some kind of wonderful, would you say?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give it that. I don't know. I have more questions than answers about this one, I gotta be honest.
Pat, how do you feel?
You know, I vowed I would never say I didn't like a movie again. And this movie is really pushing me to like break that vow. That's what I'm going to say. That's what I got.
Don? What's oh, sorry, Pat, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, and first time I saw it.
I actually forgot to tell you guys, we have a new Patreon sponsor, and they love this movie.
I knew it was coming. God,
I'm just kidding.
I know, but it's going to happen. We know it's all going to happen.
It will. If we want more Patreon people, maybe I just need you to hate movies.
You know what? Here's what I'm going to say. John Candy brings his A game in everything he does. And that, I mean, I could sit there and watch that scene for an hour and 23 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go.
Okay.
What do you mean he didn't get on the plane? Who am I talking to?
I can offer you $4.44. $4.44. What about the benefits?
2 15-minute breaks and a lunch.
A half-hour lunch. How does this movie make me feel? I'll start with this is the first time I've seen this movie. I will also start with it's not the first time I've seen the GIF that is probably most often associated with this movie.
Well, no.
Giddy up.
I think that's a thing.
Giddy up. How does this movie make me feel? I would like to quote the legendary Garth Algar and say, makes me feel kind of funny. Like when we used to climb the rope in gym class. That's what I'm going to go with.
Well played, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, okay. I don't even know where to start with this one, but I have questions.
Yeah.
So we've talked about movies in the past that were basically vehicles to sell toys.
Yeah.
I was really expecting when I read a little bit about this movie and I read up in the trivia and all sorts of other things to hear about some connection to Target.
Mm-hmm.
And I have yet to find one.
Mm-hmm.
Was this Target of all places? Why would they choose Target, a real place? Why not some generic unnamed store? Like there had to be some sort of cross promotion planned. Well, I have so many questions.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's the funny thing. So, out of the mouths of babes, when I mentioned to the kids when it was going through like some of the 3 questions, and I mentioned that one of our movies was a movie where somebody gets locked into a Target, and of course, Nora, the one who like watches movies with me and like at age 10, I've got her analyzing movies. She goes, the first thing she says, as soon as I say they're locked into a Target, she goes, "Ooh, that would be fun. I bet there was a lot of product placement."
It was. I mean, it was a moment.
Yeah.
Definitely was that moment where you felt like, okay, this is a huge Target commercial.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking you around the store and they are showing you the food area and the electronics area and the housewares area. They definitely hit all the departments pretty on brand.
Yeah.
I've yet to find like that one paragraph where it says John Hughes wrote this story and he put them in a store and someone said, well, we can get a lot of money from Target if we do it in the Target and shoot it like this. And I
haven't in just in doing the internet research that I tend to do before we do each of our movies. I could not find anything.
Only thing I found was, they tell you the Target it was shot at.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They don't say anything about the cross promotion. They don't say anything about
They don't say anything about where were all the security cameras recording him eating all the food and all that kind of stuff. And
and who leaves a new employee at the overnight cleaning alone?
Well, and if the store is locked, how do the robbers get in?
Well, they do show that one scene at the end where they sort of jimmy their way back in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And is it legal to lock somebody in?
No.
It seems like something that by the 90s we would have gotten away from.
So one of the things I did read was that this movie was written before Home Alone was created.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't get produced and filmed until after Home Alone had already come out. So one of the things I read was John Hughes was kind of working out some of the things that he would eventually put into Home Alone. You've got the two robbers. You've got the situation where somebody is trapped or locked in somewhere, and they have to kind of use some of their surroundings to help them. So there were bits and pieces of that kind of tied into.
Yeah, there were some gags,
storytelling.
like
yeah,
gag with the drawing of them when they find the crooks at the end.
Yeah,
they reuse that in Home Alone 2.
Yep. Well, so let me ask it this way. Of my questions that I've got here prepared for us, let me ask it this way, and maybe that'll help us try to figure some of this out.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. What was this movie about?
It's funny because that's what I was thinking, here, just so I'm not just like railing on the movie, but that's what kind of got me is that, okay, so the kid couldn't hold down a job, but his relationship wasn't that good with his parents. The dad seemed kind of, pretty out of touch. So it wasn't about him redeeming a relationship with his family. It wasn't necessarily about him holding down a job. And even like the love story with him and the girl, is that what it was about? Because even that seemed kind of, they were saying all the things that you would say in that situation, but I don't know, that just didn't feel like there were any stakes in it. You know what I'm saying? Like it didn't feel very well developed. I mean, the opportunity was there. And I mean, I think the setup was great. I mean, it's the same kind of thing that you see in The Breakfast Club, but just removed 4 or 5 years, right? Okay, so they're college age or soon to be off to college age and everything. So they're not in high school, but they're trying to, some of those conversations they had. And it could have been, they could have delved into their different personality types. And you could have explored, okay, well, why do these personality types, did this come from who you were in high school, or did these personality types define who you were in high school? Now let's go from there. How did that set us up for where we are in life right now? You know what I'm saying? I mean, the Jennifer Connelly character could possibly be the Molly Ringwald character plus 4 or 5 years, right? Like, definitely from a well-off family, kind of the daddy's little girl that, like that kind of thing, but then starting to rebel against that. Now, this guy, the guy, Brett from Pulp Fiction, his character wasn't in The Breakfast Club, but it's the same thing. Like that's what this movie could have been, but instead it kind of was all gag humor, which was funny because like my reaction was like, I didn't know John Hughes movies much until we started this podcast. Like I knew Uncle Buck, I knew Great Outdoors, I'd heard of The Breakfast Club, all that kind of, or I'd seen The Breakfast Club, but I mean, I didn't know him inside and out. And it was funny, like watching this movie, I'm like, this just doesn't seem like his thing. Like he does. I mean, this is almost like goofy, slapsticky kind of humor. And then I've read that like he wanted to take his name off of it, So I guess that's the thing with this movie is like, I think it could have been that. And I think the humor, if they would have just toned it down from being so ridiculous, it could have still been a funny movie. But I think they kind of let the pitch sail by with actually telling a story. So.
Yeah, I mean, at best, you get she maybe convinces him to leave home and grow up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't end with him getting out to LA and actually making something of himself. You end with him lounging by the pool, dreaming of the Hollywood sign being Jim Wood.
Yeah.
So he grows up enough to realize that he doesn't want to live at home and mooch off his parents, but instead he's going to mooch off her $50,000 and live in LA instead. I suppose he gets the girl in the end. But as far as what's it about, It's the slapstick up the crooks of Home Alone without any message. Like a first attempt at a lot of things, and then it
Yeah. I mean, I think for me in this one, what I think you guys you've both said it, is it just doesn't have, like, I clearly know when I watch 16 Candles, I know what that movie's about. I know that it's about Samantha trying to find her place in her family, and, everybody's forgetting her birthday and, kind of feeling left out and alone. And I know that. Home Alone, like, I know what that one's about. The relationship between the kid and his family, and in particular his mother, and, the trying to redeem that part of it and understand from each other's point of view. I know that. Breakfast Club, we know that one. It all seems pretty clear. Uncle Buck, like, all of these, John Hughes is so good with the personal relationships between family and between kids and adults, and it just, all of that is missing from this. Like, if you hadn't told me that this was written and produced by John Hughes, I might not have known it's a John Hughes movie. Because so much of that seems to be missing here. Like, in all the other movies, I'm trying to think of a John Hughes movie where this doesn't happen, but in all the other movies, there is a certain, and I don't know that I want to blame this on the actor, there's a certain charm, I know we've said that a lot, there's a certain charm to the main character in all of John Hughes' movies. Whether it's Uncle Buck, whether it's Ferris Bueller, whether it's the kids in, even when they're being jerks in The Breakfast Club, there's still something that's kind of charming about these characters, and you're rooting for these characters. In this one, I don't know that I ever find myself rooting for Jim. Now, if I had seen this movie when I was a teenager, maybe I'd have a completely different perspective.
Oh, at some point in our lives, we would have rooted for Jim.
Yeah.
Well, you would have, I think, I'm not going to say what you would have done, but I think, you would have, a person would a person would root for him because, all right, he's the guy to get the girl. And I mean, when you're 13 or 14 years old, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but a person that's 13 or 14 years old tends to be a little bit more, superficial in their outlook of the movie. Right. And so it's just like, oh, okay, good guy, bad guys, good guys trying to get the girl. Okay, good guy's upset. Now he's not upset anymore. It's like you're not going to kind of drill down. You're going to just watch what's there and move on to the next thing. I'm not saying every 12 or 13 or 14-year-old, but I mean, I think the typical one might. But it's like when you want to watch it and you want to see a little bit more of a story that sticks with you, a story that makes you think, right? I think you want a little bit more, but this movie isn't providing it.
Now, I will say one of the things that I did think the movie did fairly well was when the two of them, when Josie and Jim were kind of locked in the target. The one thing I think it did do well was their conversations. I think that's another thing that John Hughes always does really well is the conversations between young people in the movies. You kind of, sometimes the parents, the adults kind of get relegated to either the bad guy, or if they're not the bad guy, they're just kind of, they're off in the wings, maybe influencing some stuff here or there, maybe getting in the way here or there, and they don't fully understand the kids. And, but the conversations between teenagers tend to be always, really good quality in a John Hughes movie. I think that's what this one did well. Even if I couldn't tell you exactly what this movie was about, they continually refer to him as like the town liar, and he's always making up stories. And even in the trailer, there were even more that I don't think they used in the movie of stuff. He's like, you remember the one, I tell you about the time I invented the artificial dog heart, and like weird stuff like that. And I don't know that I know necessarily where that came into play, unless you want to say that he's been lying to himself about his own potential and what he could be doing. But I'm not sure that got fleshed out enough. Right. Yeah, I hear you. So I did appreciate, the real, because I think that's one of the things about John Hughes is that people often talk about is the real conversations between kids. Most times adults would be like, yeah, kids aren't mature enough to have a weighty conversation that actually has substance to it. But John Hughes is always really good about doing that. It's like, no. These, you think of these kids as not being mature enough, but lock them in a target together and they're actually going to have some pretty mature conversations. Right. And I think that's what this movie did well. The rest, not so much. There wasn't much of it. Like you said, there wasn't much of a story. It was a bunch of little scenes here and there of him like eating the candy in the aisle at the Target and, playing around with the different stuff and coming up with a better sweeping system with like 7 or 8 different dustbusters. Yeah. Well, see, that's in those other movies, or for example, like The Breakfast Club specifically. I mean, all of the action was in support of getting the kids to the point where they could have the conversation. Mm-hmm. Right. So them getting to know each other, them getting into their misadventures, everything was in support of those conversations. Right. In this, I don't think you could say that. Right. I mean, that's where, and just kind of piling on. Now we're saying the same thing over and over. I mean, it's just like everything in this movie was a hodgepodge. It didn't come together to support or facilitate them having meaningful discussion. Mm-hmm. They would just kind of pop up. Yeah, and the discussion was there, but I didn't feel like any of the discussion or the dialogue like pushed the story forward. Mm-hmm. Kind of felt like it was just talking for the sake of talking, and that it didn't necessarily have an effect on the overall plot of the movie. Yeah. So I think that's where this one lost me was I can't really tell you what it was about. Like other than it being about a couple of kids that just want to get out. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you much beyond that. Yeah. Yeah. And I think there were some interesting things that they could have, they didn't have to, but, and I don't know if you want to get too heavy with it, but I think there were some more interesting things. I actually, and not just because of some of the obvious reasons, I think this could have been a more interesting movie if Josie had been the main character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we explored more of her family life and why she wants to get out and get away. Mm-hmm. There's definitely more there.
Well, because she more than implies, her dad's abusive.
Mm-hmm. Right. And but you could see that. Yeah. Yeah. So to me, that would have been more interesting. I just don't find, and again, that might have been different if I had seen this at a younger age. I just don't find Jim to be an interesting character. He's kind of obnoxious, like more obnoxious than usual. I mean, even like Ferris Bueller can sometimes be a little obnoxious. Cameron can be a little obnoxious. There was just something about Jim that something about Jim. I think like according to Jim, there was just something about his character that he wasn't interesting to me. He was more obnoxious than any other John Hughes character I've ever come into contact with. Mm-hmm. And I did not care about him at all. But if you had flipped that, and if you had made, to me, Josie was the more complex character. I felt like Jim was a confused character and Josie was a complex character. Yeah. And if you had made her the main focus of this, if she was the protagonist, that to me would have been more interesting. Yeah. Well, like that scene when she gets introduced. I mean, like, obviously. This introduction? That's it. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put that. I'm going to put an MP3 of that sound file on my phone, and then every time I walk somewhere and I take my coat off, I'm just going to start playing that music. Yeah, you are. You should definitely do that.
Pat, I just wanted to say the robe or the blanket that you're wearing, I think looks a little bit like the jacket she was wearing in the movie. Perhaps it was. Perhaps it was. This is kind of an 80s or early 90s, late 80s type style. Okay. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. That's right. About style, other than the blanket, because the air conditioning's off.
The heat's off. All right. We're back. And we've got the princess.
We're back. Here's the news. All the news is new and approved by the U.S. Army, the sweetest smelling army in the world.
I look at that scene when she gets introduced to us. Or wait, is she introduced? She's in the car. When she comes home.
The first time we see her, she's in the car at the gas station.
Okay, this is when she's at home and the father has the two business partners there.
Yeah, Bob Bosenbeck.
Yeah. And she comes in and it's like, okay, I'll put my hat on if, I was 14 years old watching this, and it's just like, oh man. But now you watch that and you just think, okay, like if you saw your daughter doing that to, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just like, whoa, there's all sorts of dysfunction and damage and all that kind of stuff on display. Now, if we're playing this for laughs, then okay, cheap laughs, but and if we're not playing it for laughs, then this cycles back to John, what you were saying. There's a lot of stuff down in the basement there that we got to kind of like bring up and like, what is going on here? And
then the dad spends spends rest of the movie making it seem like he's concerned she's missing.
Yeah, so there was some which I mean would kind of fit in line with someone that's abusive.
Yeah.
Right? Like trying to where is she? I've got to find, to kind of possess the person. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this wasn't like a high school kid because they were all supposed to be graduated a couple of years beyond high school, right?
Yeah. I think I read somewhere they were supposed to be either 20 or 21. Okay,
so I mean, older kid, young adult, well, obviously an adult, So it's not like some freshman, like a 14-year-old or 15-year-old, right? It's someone that's a little bit older and could be moving out of the house and the whole shoot match there. But even that, like you said, okay, was this just concerned dad? Like, oh man, I said some stuff. She's confused, sort of like the Uncle Buck spoilers. But like you see there when he's trying to deal with the eldest daughter and she's rebelling, right?
Yeah.
But in this one, it's just like, oh man, I've been so nasty to her and I said some things I really shouldn't have. And there's got to be some kind of what am I trying to say? What's a better word for patching it up? Like fixing it up?
Resolution?
Resolution. Yeah. Reconciliation.
Yeah.
There's got to be some of that, or the guy's just an abusive jerk that is like driving around like, where is my daughter? Mm-hmm. But either way, like you said, they don't explore either of those things, I mean, it's just kind of there and you're left with, is this all being played for laughs or silly but there's a lot of stuff that they kind of telegraph,
Well, I think it's like we said earlier, it's they run off to California and Mr. McClellan, Josie's dad, reaches out to one of his business associates, Mr. Marcellus Wallace. Mm-hmm. And, they ultimately are able to track them down and things do not work out well for the artist formerly known as Jim Dodge, now known as Brett.
This did not go well in L.A.
No.
That could possibly be one truth, or another truth is Marcellus Wallace had Tony Rocky Horror thrown out of a window for giving you a foot massage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The reason that Marcellus Wallace threw Tony Rocky Horror out the window is between Marcellus Wallace and Tony Rocky Horror. Mm-hmm. Well, and even what's his name? I mean, Brett. I guess Brett, like, again, it was very shallow and very much played for laughs. I guess I would kind of like to have seen him played a little bit more like what was the guy that was the kickboxer? It's the upcoming sportster. Yeah, it's an upcoming sport. We train hard. And he ended up going with the girl to France in the end of that movie. Remember that one? What was that movie? And it was the guy, his sister is an actress as well.
Wasn't Double Impact.
No. This was like a John Hughes movie. And guy, his sister, they were in a lot of 80s movies.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? And he was kind of the guy from the wrong side of the tracks type of thing.
Yeah, it was.
And he was like,
it was John Cusack. Which one was that?
John Cusack, yeah, where he plays the kickboxer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm training a kickboxing.
Say Anything?
Sport of the future. Say Anything.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, write a little bit more into that, right? Because even though that guy was kind of a free spirit and just kind of like, yeah, I'm just doing whatever, but he had a goal and he, you know, treated the girl okay. And I mean, I'm getting into the other movie now, but I mean, wasn't that kind of his thing in that movie? Is that he's like, you know, I'm going to treat her well. I'm going to be a good person, like, you know. But he just kind of did his thing. Make this guy like in the same vein, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, now that you mention that, I mean, it's very similar. She was a little bit more the kind of the studious, you know, they had money, but it was because the dad was kind of crooked.
Right.
And she was kind of the more studious, straightforward one. But comparing the two movies, I mean, it's kind of similar situations, similar relationship type deal. Say Anything would. Lloyd Dobler is in Say Anything is much more, John Cusack's character is, you know, much more intriguing as a character than Jim Dodge is.
Yeah.
And more fleshed out, like more well-rounded as a character. Yeah. Like you actually like him. Yeah. You know, he's still kind of that underachiever. But he's not quirky to the point of being annoying.
Yeah.
And he's not a jerk.
And he's got a plan. Yeah. And he's got a plan. Right. Yeah. You know, he knows what he wants to do with himself. And this guy,
he's almost too much of the Jim Dodge character is almost too much of a slacker.
Well, yeah. And then they don't explain why. And then he gets all angry when he hears what the kids were saying about him.
Yeah.
You're angry because.
You're angry because it's true.
Yeah. Like, why do you get to get angry about that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, is that realistic that the character would get angry about that? You know?
Yeah.
There was just, like you said, they didn't build this character. They didn't give you anything to go on.
I would be curious to know more, and I wasn't able to find, you know, just from internet searches and whatnot, I wasn't really able to find exactly what the studio did with the movie that made John Hughes so upset. I mean, it sounds like there were several things that were changed. It sounds like he just was not happy at how the whole thing turned out and requested.
He used words in one thing I read, he used words like vulgar.
Yeah.
It sounds like maybe he wasn't around or they wouldn't listening to any of his script notes. And
yeah,
I mean, we've all been around the block enough to know that you can take a scene and shoot it one way and the same scene shot a completely different way. It looks very different.
Yeah. So I wonder if his take on it was because they very clearly use Jennifer Connelly in some of the scenes in this movie in a way that does not necessarily scream story development or character. I mean, we'll just lay it out there. She's basically used for her looks in a good several scenes, if not the majority of the scenes she's in this movie, which is a shame because her character has some really intelligent things to say. So I wonder if that's where he got upset about it, because dialogue-wise, she's an interesting character. That's not how they shot her.
Right, and I feel like he wrote her as this interesting character, and it's just not the way it ended up on screen.
Right. You know, they chose to take a well-developed character and shove her in a white tank top and have her roller skate around a Target. Which is
Abraham Lincoln.
You're right. Which is fine. That's all fine if you want to do that with your character. But I think that I wonder if that's what made him upset about it, is that if it focused too much on her looks.
Yeah.
Well, and don't his characters in his movies, there's always the why. They give you the why is that character that way.
Yeah.
You know, why is that character saying those things? Like you said, they gave her intelligent things to say. But I mean, there was no exploration of why did the character get to that point? Why do they what informs their actions?
Yeah.
You know, and isn't that John, in my opinion, that's John Hughes' thing, is then by seeing that becomes the, you know, how you can better understand kids or understand where kids are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't here. This just was like, she was rebelling for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So shifting gears just a little bit, the environment of the target itself, did that help or did that hurt the movie? Like, did that change it? If this were to be in a completely different location or store, or was there anything necessarily that said, this has to be in a department store, this has to be in a Target? We kind of talked a little bit about it before, like we're not quite sure why Target. You know, did they need this environment?
The thing about the Target versus another store, and you know, I suppose a Walmart works just as well if it was shot today, but you had options. It has to be a store with all of those things. Because trying to make this make sense. If you pick a store like, say, Macy's,
mm-hmm.
you might not have the food court angle. Right. You're not going to have tents.
You're not going to have the paper plates you need to set up the dinner in the middle of aisle 5 and
you're not
cook it in the microwave.
Right. Well, yeah, you're right. But you would have China at Macy's. I suppose you could have stepped up a little.
Well, yeah.
You almost need those components to keep it interesting. I feel like that's what one of the things that keeps this interesting is there's always another place in the store to go that looks totally different.
Mm-hmm.
When you're walking through a Macy's, it's aisles and it's racks and racks of clothes. And let's be honest, a sweater versus a shirt doesn't really change the look of that scene that much. Where in this case, you're going from tents to TVs to food prep to, you know, there's just different places to go.
Mm-hmm.
So while I guess I would say it wouldn't have had to be a Target, the fact that they had more to play with in that Target might have helped a little bit. Now, you could just as easily have done it in a mall with multiple stores that you had access to, and it would have accomplished that same goal. I think one of the things they did right was give themselves options.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you had to have tile floor because you had the roller skating.
Right.
I mean, you just had to.
Yeah.
And where, you know, how many other stores other than Target are you going to have a full, larger than life display of pantyhose to run in?
Oh, yeah.
Because that was awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Bo. I mean, I think everything he said, the opportunities, the fact that it's in a store, all the, I think works. And I think, could you have picked another location? Probably, but that would not have helped the story at all. You know what I'm saying? Like the things to help this story was just, you know, changing some dialogue thing, Yeah. I mean, it was writing a plot, you know, like that. I think the setting worked. It was just back to our initial question. What was this really about? So.
Well, and I wonder too, if, I don't know, I'm just trying to kind of think back to the mindset of 1991, and I'm wondering, is Target, I don't think I would think of Target as being an essentially Midwestern kind of thing, because that's the other thing about the John Hughes movies is it's pretty much, it's the Midwest. Like it's almost always Chicago or Illinois. It's almost always the northern suburbs. But it's always very uniquely Midwestern and uniquely Chicago. I'm wondering if there just doesn't seem to be anything uniquely Midwestern or Chicago or northern suburbs of Chicago about a Target. So I'm wondering if that's maybe part of what was missing about this too, is it's not one of the usual locales, because usually in his movies, the location tends to add to the charm and the storyline and It's such an essential piece of it, whereas you're just kind of you're in a corporate department store setting.
Right.
So maybe partly because of that, it doesn't have quite the same heart to it that another John Hughes movie might have.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, did he wrote this, right?
Yeah, he wrote and produced it.
Wrote and produced, but he wasn't the director. Okay. Because I think Target, like its home office or something, is in one of the Midwest.
Oh, is
it? Aren't they a Minnesota company?
I feel like, yeah.
Yeah.
But that being said,
Minneapolis.
Okay.
There we go.
So, I mean, maybe 30 years ago, do you know what it would be? It would be sort of like us whenever we were talking about LA, talking about an In-N-Out burger.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, we've heard of it, but we think of that as a fact. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But now it's spread so much that when we look at it, it seems, super corporate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But also to your point, it's like you're still, that's the point of it. Wherever you go, this could be Chicago, this could be Minnesota, this could be Wisconsin. This, if we're just talking the Midwest, this could be Indiana. And that doesn't help locate this movie, right? Because the target looks the same no matter what of the Midwestern states you're in. So again, back to your initial point, it is interesting that they chose a Target.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some stuff just, for me, just not adding up with the movie.
Yeah. All right. Well, kind of related to, before we get into our 3 questions, kind of related our questions to kind of ask, does this movie hold up for us 30 years later? If this movie was being released in theaters today, what would be the reason you would go see it? Thank you for that look, Bo, because that's the correct answer.
Hey, just checking. Well, John Hughes and Jennifer Connelly.
Mm-hmm.
What else is there?
That would be it for me.
Yeah.
Have I seen the movie before I go see it in the theater? Is this a re-release?
No. So you're standing in front of the movie theater marquee.
Yeah.
And you're looking at the movies that are available. And let's say you have access to be able to watch the trailer, and so you have a sense of who it was made by, who's in it, that kind of stuff. So you have a vague sense of the story. The director, the producer, the writer, the actors. What would be the reason you would go see this? So if you were like, all right, I'm in front of the movie theater, I'm going to go in and watch this movie, why would you have picked this movie?
I don't think I would have. I don't like romantic comedies and character.
But if you were going to.
I suppose the same thing that John Hughes, Jennifer Connelly.
Okay. That's pretty much the same for me.
Yeah. I can't.
I could even say, and normally I really like John Hughes, but I could even say those would be my 2 reasons. And you could even hold the John Hughes.
Yeah.
That's like Nora when she tells me like her favorite kind of sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, when we fix sweet potatoes at Thanksgiving, my favorite kind is the sweet potatoes with the marshmallows, and hold the sweet potatoes.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
There it is.
Uh-huh.
But again, I just cycle back to, I don't necessarily go in for that whole like romantic. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it's just not my deal.
That's not your thing.
That's not my thing. So you kind of have to, and this is, I think, what we already said. You have to give me something to kind of suck me in and give me a reason to go see it. Now, if I've seen The Breakfast Club and if I've seen, I'll go check it out. And that's probably why John Hughes then was just like, I don't want my name on this, is because it doesn't fit with his thing.
Yeah.
Or we're way wrong. Like I can pretend to know I'm in John Hughes's head, and know what he's thinking. That's pretty arrogant of me.
Well, we know he didn't like it.
Yeah.
And he tried to distance himself, and they refused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm just rambling. Now I'm just looking at your backdrop there, John. And
there you go.
Distracted.
I had completely forgotten about this. This movie, because she was in a John Hughes movie, and because Spider-Man: Homecoming had several references to John Hughes and John Hughes movies, that's why Jennifer Connelly was the voice of the artificial intelligence in Spider-Man's suit in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Really?
And the second layer to that, her husband is Paul Bettany?
Yep, Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany.
Yep.
Oh.
Jarvis / Vision.
Slash the voice of the suit / whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
Guy, man.
Oh, yeah.
A lucky guy.
Well, yes.
Yes.
All right. And then the second question, I think I know the answer to this one. Would you buy this movie on DVD, Blu-ray, or digital?
No.
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 Sorry, guys. I don't want to.
No, not happening.
Not worth the shelf space.
No.
Don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Yep.
Don't want to hurt the actor's feelings.
I now have context for the gif that you see often of Jennifer Connelly riding on the mechanical horse.
Yeah.
I now have seen the movie that's from. I'm like, all right, I've done my due diligence. I've watched the movie. I don't know that I need to see it ever again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this one can stay on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
No. All right. Well, gentlemen, I think it's time for 3 questions.
Fire it up.
He asks each traveler 5 questions. 3 questions. 3 questions.
It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
All right, question number 1. If you were locked in a Target for the night, which section would you likely spend the most time in?
Movies.
Okay.
Movies / TVs. I mean, gonna Star Wars hooked up to 8 TVs at once and just kick back. I mean, you'd have to drag a lounge chair over from Garden. But, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the goal, right?
Mm-hmm. That was my response to electronics.
Yeah.
You got video games, you've got cameras, you've got movies, giant TVs. That's where I'm spending my time.
Yep. I think that makes sense. Try out all the games that you didn't own for your system.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that yours too, Pat?
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Okay.
I might take stuff in the back just because of the aforementioned cameras, watching me and everything. And then the guy comes back. Yeah.
Yeah.
But electronics.
Okay.
That'd be the spot.
All right. Question number 2. What's your favorite Jennifer Connelly role?
Park City.
Yes. That was definitely on probably my top 5 short list of things.
Time to watch that movie again. It's been just long enough.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of movies that we feel like are worthy of buying a physical copy of, I'm looking over there right now. I'm like, there you are. Hello, Dark City. We should get reacquainted.
Hello, old friend.
Hello, old friend.
I'm saying the Top Gun Maverick trailer.
For a movie that's not even released yet. I like it.
Hey, Benjamin, the Admiral's daughter.
Yep, there it is. There it is. If you're gonna force me to go, if you're gonna force me to say something other than the Top Gun trailer, then I'm just gonna wait until you've given your answer because I don't want to steal it.
Okay. My answer is probably very obvious. I'm going to go Rocketeer.
There it is.
The Rock of who?
The Rock of who? Yeah, I'm going to go Rocketeer because I really like her in that role because I think sometimes it gets overlooked at just how she's not, for a movie that's supposed to be set in the 1930s, she's not a damsel in distress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think up to that point, at least the movies that I've seen her in, Labyrinth, and I hadn't seen this one before, but Labyrinth and this one and some of her other early movies, it's kind of, it kind of seems like the young girl, and you would think that in a movie like The Rocketeer, well, it's old timey, it's from the 30s, so you got to have the hero save her. No, actually, she does pretty well on her own.
Right.
So I've always liked her character in that one. My short list that I mentioned would also include Labyrinth. Dark City was on there too, and Sharon and I have been really enjoying Snowpiercer.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'd throw that in there too.
Cool. I finally played a scene with Neville Sinclair.
There you go. All right. And question number 3. What was your first job?
Paperboy.
Oh, nice. Where was your route? Was in your neighborhood?
Yeah.
I worked on a farm.
Okay.
Oh, no, okay.
No, I was just going to ask Bo how old he was.
Oh, geez. 13-ish?
Okay.
12-ish, maybe?
Okay. And Pat, you said working on a farm?
Worked on a farm. Started the winter when they had the Christmas trees. And then, that started there, and then worked in their greenhouse in the spring and worked in the farm stand in the summer, and did that from, same as Bo. Like I was 12, maybe 13, and did that all the way up into college.
Yeah, mine was a little bit later in life. I don't think I got my first job until I was, I want to say, was that junior or senior year of high school? Yeah, mine was a little bit later. I got a job in the stock room at Sears.
There you go.
And it was not fun at all. I absolutely hated it. Pretty much every moment of it. The only reason that I got the job there was because a friend of mine, Bo, you know him too, Ed Gilreath.
Big Ed.
Big Ed. He was working there. And part of the reason, at least that's what he told me at the time, part of the reason he's like, yeah, we actually are we're always lifting stuff, and we're always moving things around and lifting heavy things and loading them up into people's cars. And he's like, it's really not, he's like, it's not a super complicated job, but he's like, when I'm not playing a sport, I can use that as some of my weightlifting time to get ready for football and wrestling. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, work a job, do a little weightlifting, get ready for the football season, and get paid to do it. All right, sure, why not? My friend works there too. Let's do this. So, yeah, it didn't last very long for me. I was there for most of the. I was there for the Christmas season, a little bit of the winter time, and it. Yeah, the job did not go well, Enterprise. So that did not last long there.
There it is.
All right. Do we have anything else we want to say about this one? I think our thoughts were pretty straightforward.
Yeah. That's a good movie.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah.
It's great. John Candy was amazing.
Actually, that was probably one of my favorite parts.
Yep. Yeah.
That whole scene where where he's mistaken for the operations manager or whatever he thought he was applying for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was very good.
All right. Well, if you want to find more of our episodes, you can go check us out at 30podcast.com, at 30podcast on the different social medias. Don't forget to check out our sponsor and the rest of the shows in the Scene Stealers podcast network by heading over to scenestealersglobal.com. Our next episode's coming up. May is our Crime Doesn't Pay month. We've got Boys in the Hood, Bugsy, The Last Boy Scout, and Point Break. Our May Patreon episode, for anybody who is joining us and supporting us over there on Patreon, is The French Connection from 1971. June is Shots Fired, Ricochet, JFK, Naked Gun 2.5, Hot Shots, and Toy Soldiers. June Patreon is Guns of the Navarone from 1961. And then July is Across the Pond month. We've got King Ralph, The Commitments, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Hook. And our July Patreon is a book review of the Heir to the Empire Thrawn trilogy of Star Wars books that came out starting in 1991. So lots of good stuff to look forward to for all of that. Are you gentlemen up for the book review?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got to get cranking on that.
Yeah, I'm knowing my own schedule and whatnot. I think I'm looking at audiobooks.
Yeah, that might be the only way.
Just knowing
as well.
Yeah, I mean, and we read them. I mean, a few years ago. That's what John and I were reading together for like bedtime stories before I'd tuck him in at night. So it's been recently that I've reread them. I say recently, it's probably been like 6 years. But yeah, I think knowing my own schedule, I think the extent of my reading for that is probably going to be the audiobooks.
Yeah.
Which, if anybody has ever, like, that was the first audiobook I think I ever owned. My parents, and that was I didn't even know they had new Star Wars books coming out. But whatever year, Heir to the Empire, the first book came out, my dad got me the audiobook for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
And I had never owned an audiobook before. We always had cassettes that had like old episodes of the Superman radio show and stuff like that on it, but I'd never actually had like an audiobook. And he got me that one, and it was new Star Wars. I didn't even know they were coming out with new Star Wars stories, and I was completely hooked from that point on. I think after listening to that audiobook, I tried to get my hands on other audiobooks, and from that point on, I think I bought every Star Wars book that came out, up until maybe like 10 years ago.
Cool.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's time to, I think, delve back into the Star Wars books. I mean, there's been so much other stuff written that's kind of like the multiverse of Star Wars. It's an alternative timeline or what, in some cases.
Yeah.
Or you just don't even have to headcanon it, just enjoy the books. But yeah, I remember when those came out. I still have my 3 copies that I got when I was a kid, and those came out. And
yeah, I have the copies just in a bin. I got to track them down or go audiobook, which is more likely what I have.
Yeah.
That's what
it's going to be fun.
The 3 copies that we have, we got, because I had my old paperback copies that I originally got of the second and third one, because I had the audiobook of the first one. I had the second one and third one in paperback. But then a few years ago, and that was probably about 5 or 6 years ago now too, we went out and because John had enjoyed reading them so much, we went out and got the hardcover versions of them. And not long after getting the hardcover versions, we actually went to a little comic book convention at the Lake County Fairgrounds over here. And Timothy Zahn was actually there signing autographs.
Oh, awesome.
And he was, and because it wasn't a very big comic convention. I mean, that was one of the nice things about it was it was really small compared to when we'd go to the really huge one at McCormick Place in Chicago. Basically, we were walking around and we noticed there was a table and it said, Star Wars author Timothy Zahn. I was like, whoa, hold on. What? He's here? Okay, so and we had we kind of knew that because we brought the books with us, but we're like, okay, I didn't actually think that like we'd be able to catch him, and it wasn't busy, but there was nobody at his table. I don't know if it was his spouse or his assistant or whoever was there, and John walked up and we're like, oh, we missed him, and she goes, no, hold on a second, he just went to the bathroom, he'll be back in a second. Like, oh, okay, like is there a particular time he's signing? She's like, no. Like, you got plenty of time. Like, we're here all day. Like, all right. So yeah, we talked to him for a little bit, and John got all 3 of his books signed by him, and got his picture taken with him, and it was fun. It was fun to get to meet him.
Cool.
That was also around the time that John got his books signed by and got to meet just for a minute or so. Got to meet R.L. Stine. He got all of his got a whole bunch of his I'm blanking out. Goosebumps. The Goosebumps books signed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No. All right. Well, gentlemen, that's going to do it for us this time. As always, thank you for being here with me.
Thank you, John.
All right. Everyone.
Thank you, John.
Be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies, and we'll see you back here next time.